John shattered Ayla's world when he walked away without a word. No explanation, no closure, just silence. But what he didn't know is that silence makes survivors. And when Ayla returned, she wasn't the same broken girl. She was power, and he was the one who lost everything. They say love changes people, but they never talk about what happens when it breaks you first. Ayla stood in the middle of a cold, empty apartment, the silence screaming louder than any goodbye. No letter, no explanation, just a half-packed suitcase, and a missing key. John had walked out of her life as if 3 years of love meant nothing. She had given him everything, her time, her dreams, even herself, and he took it all without looking back. But this story isn't about a broken girl crying in the dark. It's about what happens when the girl rises. 3 years later, Ayla walks into a crowded corporate gala dressed in elegance, radiating power. No one in that room knows the storm she survived, but one man does. John, now the successful CEO of a real estate firm. John freezes mid-conversation when his eyes meet hers across the room. His confident smirk falters. Because she's not the girl he left. She's become the woman he never thought she could be. But Ayla didn't come to haunt him. She came for something else. And maybe, just maybe, he isn't the villain, she thought, because the truth, neither of them ever moved on, and tonight might change everything. 3 years ago, Ayla believed in forever. She thought John's silence was temporary, that he was just lost, overwhelmed. But months turned into years, and the only thing she ever got from him was silence. Now, standing just feet apart in that grand ballroom, her heart shouldn't be racing, but it is, because, despite everything, she never stopped wondering why he left. John walks over slowly, unsure, like a man walking through a dream he once abandoned. His voice is softer than she remembers. Ayla ... You look different, she interrupts, lips tight with a bitter smile. No, he says, eyes searching hers, stronger. For a moment, the noise of the gala disappears. All she can hear is the echo of unspoken memories, the late-night talks, the laughter, the plans they made on his apartment floor with cheap wine and wild dreams. She hated that her heart remembered. He tries to explain, but the truth isn't ready to surface, not yet. What Ayla doesn't know is that John didn't walk away because he stopped loving her. He left because he thought he had no choice. And the secret he's been carrying all this time could destroy everything. Or bring it all back. But tonight isn't the night for answers, it's just the beginning of a truth. Too heavy to stay hidden much longer. The music swirled around them, elegant and detached. But Ayla could barely breathe. Every word from John felt rehearsed, measured, like he'd spent years preparing for this moment. But nothing he said explained why he disappeared. I thought I was protecting you, he finally admitted, his eyes dark with something deeper, something still unsaid. From what, John? From yourself. Her voice didn't shake. She'd practiced that before he could answer. A woman stepped beside him. John, they need you at the board table. Her tone was casual, but her hand lingered a little too long on his arm. Ayla looked at the woman, tall, polished, confident, the kind of presence that made you question everything. Business or pleasure? Ayla asked, with a cool smile. John didn't answer. Ayla's chest tightened, but she wouldn't let him see it. Not here. Not again. It's good to see you, John, she said, her voice like velvet over glass. But I didn't come here to look back. She turned to walk away, but he caught her wrist gently. There's so much you don't know. And whose fault is that? As Ayla walked toward the balcony, her head held high, her heart waged a quiet war. She came here to show him she had healed. But now, she wasn't so sure, and neither was John, because the truth he'd buried was closer to the surface than ever. And it might be the one thing that could either bring her back or push her away forever. Ayla's hands trembled as she stared at the screen. The legal threat wasn't random, it was deliberate. The holding company trying to sabotage her firm was still under John's father's name. Different lawyers, different faces, but the same empire. You said you left to protect me, she said slowly, voice cracking. But your past is still following me, John. You didn't protect me, you just postponed the damage. John's expression crumbled. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they'd target you. My father, he's not even part of the company anymore. I thought, you thought, she cut in, eyes blazing. That's the problem. You think, you act, you disappear. You never ask what I want. You walked away from us without warning. And now, you want me to believe you're still the hero in this story? Silence. Raw, painful silence. He steps closer, emotion tightening his voice. I never stopped loving you, Allah. I lived with that regret every single day. But if I lose you again, without telling you the truth, without fighting for you, I won't survive it. Her heart ached with everything she wanted to believe, but trust wasn't something she could give freely anymore, not when everything was on the line. Her company, her future, her peace. John reaches for her hand, voice trembling. Let me fix this. But before she can respond, her phone rings. Again, it's her attorney. The court hearing is tomorrow, and if she loses, it's over. Isla sat alone in her office later that night, city lights flickering through the glass walls. Her attorney's voice still echoed in her mind. Cold, direct. They want a settlement. Drop the case or prepare to lose everything. But it was the attached document that shook her the most. John's name was there. Not in the current holding company. He was never part of it. But in the original transfer deed. 3 years ago, the deal that saved his father's company from collapse was signed after he left Ayla, and part of that deal, he sold his shares to a shell firm knowing they would one day become the silent weapon his father could use, he knew. She confronts him the next morning, emotions barely contained. You signed the deal, that's killing my company. John doesn't deny it. He looks gutted. I had no choice. They were threatening my mother. I thought I could control it from behind the scenes. Allah steps back, shaken. You told me you left to protect me, but you were protecting yourself, your family? He swallows hard. And I've hated myself every day since. But I never once stopped loving you. Allah's voice breaks. Then why does it feel like you were never on my side? John finally looks her in the eyes, voice breaking. Because I wasn't brave enough then. But I am now. And with that, he slides a confidential folder across the table. What is this? She asks. A way to end this, he says. Even if it costs me everything. Isla stood frozen, the confidential folder open in her trembling hands. Inside were internal emails, contracts, and financial records, evidence that could take down John's father's entire empire. It was everything she needed to win. But it was also everything John would lose? You'd be implicating yourself, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I know, he said, eyes unwavering. But if it gives you back what I helped take away, then it's worth it. For a long, heavy moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was no longer cruel, it was filled with everything they never said. Regret, pain, love that never really died. You're not the same man who left, she finally said. I know. I'm the man who came back because I couldn't stand knowing I was the reason you stopped believing in love. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. The next morning, Allah walked into court with everything she needed. Her legal team looked surprised but didn't ask questions. The case swung in her favor. The judge ruled in her company's defense, and as the courtroom cleared, John was already gone. He didn't wait for thank yous. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just disappeared again. But this time, Allah knew where to find him. 2 weeks later, on a quiet hill overlooking the city, she stood behind him. No suits, no courts, no battles. Why'd you leave without saying goodbye again? She asked softly. He turned around, his eyes meeting hers with something new. Peace. Because I needed to see if you'd come back this time. She didn't reply, she just stepped forward and took his hand. Allah never thought she'd forgive him, not after the silence. The betrayal, the years she spent rebuilding herself from scratch. But life has a way of softening sharp edges when the heart truly understands the reason behind the pain. After that day on the hill, things didn't magically fix themselves. They really talked for the first time. No lies, no ego, just truth. John sold what remained of his family's stake. He walked away from the empire that once defined him, choosing a new life not built on power, but on peace. Allah, too, changed, no longer driven by revenge. She shifted her company's mission to help young women in business navigate betrayal, business politics, and self-doubt. She turned her pain into purpose, and together, they started again. Not from where they left off, but from where they were now. Love, Allah learned, isn't just about staying. Sometimes it's about breaking, and still choosing each other after the pieces fall. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Let us know in the comments.